Blog Talk Radio.
All Pro Media Group Radio showcases professionals on a daily basis. Be inspired and listen to experts from around the globe share their accomplishments with you. APMG Radio, success at its finest.
You're listening to APMG Radio. I'm Lucy, and today I'm pleased to introduce our special guest, who is the president and founder of the Pacific chapter of the Neuropathy Association. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show Bev Anderson. Bev, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say great to have you on the show because I know that we've had a few guests on in the past segments for you.
Yes, this is the fifth and last program in this series on neuropathy, and I hope that all the listeners that haven't heard all of them will go back and take the opportunity to listen to them, because Dr. Jeffrey Ralph from the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center spoke on traumatic neuropathies and what they can do to help those, and Dr. Ewan So of the Stanford University Medical Center covered general neuropathy and neuromuscular neuropathy concerns, and Dr. Carol Lee Koski, medical director of the GBS CIDP, which is Guillain-Barré Syndrome Chronic Inflammatory Demyelinating Polyneuropathy Foundation International, spoke on autoimmune types of neuropathy.
What neuropathy is?
All right, I'd like to review the basic description that we've dealt with, and then I want to mention some other types of neuropathy that may not have been covered in the other programs. Our brain and our spinal cord are our central nervous system. All the other nerves in our body are peripheral to the brain and the spinal cord and form the peripheral nervous system. Any disease or disorder in the peripheral nervous system is a type of neuropathy. That's why it's sometimes called peripheral neuropathy. The symptoms may start as tingling and feeling of numbness in the feet or elsewhere in the body. It can be feeling of strong heat or cold, which is common and sometimes alternating back and forth. And the skin may not feel hot or cold to the touch. Sharp transitory pains like small electrical feeling pains or constant pain of feeling like you are wearing a sock or a glove when you aren't may be experienced. And different levels of pain can be a part of it, and it can be any place in your body other than your brain and your spinal cord. Carpal tunnel syndrome in the wrist and tarsal tunnel syndrome in the foot are entrapment neuropathies. You may see the ad on TV for Lyrica saying it is for diabetic nerve pain. We think they should say it's for neuropathy, but it was approved by FDA with that specific language. Most of the tests to try new treatments are done with people with neuropathy, with diabetes, because researchers think that they have basically the same situation in each person in the study. When the medication comes out, it is designated for diabetic neuropathy, but may be effective with other neuropathies as well. Lyrica is now being used successfully for treating fibromyalgia patients, because in recent research findings indicate that fibromyalgia may be a form of small fiber neuropathy. Excuse me. Let's visualize the nerve if you can just sort of visualize a nerve as like a flexible broom, a long-handled flexible broom. The top of the handle attaches to the spinal cord and continues to wherever in the body it is designated, such as the long nerve axon that goes to the feet. At the end of this broom are straws that are much finer. These would be small fibers at the end of a nerve axon. The axons are myelinated. Each axon is coated with a layer of myelin, but the small fibers are not myelinated. Myelin is usually described as an insulation, but it's really an accelerator. And I said that this way, if it's intact, the nerve signals go through like an express train. If the myelin is damaged or in demyelinating neuropathies, such as CIDP, the nerve signal to and from the brain is more like a local train. It slows up or stops at the brakes in the myelin and has to go slow to get to the next piece of myelin. So it's that's one of the things that we're finding out with fibromyalgia, because so many times if you have small fiber neuropathy, it doesn't get picked up by the tests that the neurologists give, because the electrical current doesn't go very well over small fiber neuropathy, and you have to do a skin biopsy to find it. Lyme disease is caused by a tick bite, and it's a major cause of neuropathy, but many don't find out because they are usually not tested for it. Many times a person may not even know they got a tick bite, as the young ticks that are the most prolific carriers are quite tiny. The person may just think they have a touch of the flu due to the initial response of the nerves. If caught in its early stages, Lyme disease can be cured. If it is not diagnosed, it becomes chronic, and the treatment takes a lifetime. So you can let your dog run out into the woods, and the dog come back and have a deer tick or tick that carries Lyme disease. It bites you, and you may not even notice it if you don't see the circles around it, the red circles, but you wouldn't know what that meant anyway, probably. So you would just think you had a flu-like symptom and maybe not even mention it to your doctor. You want to make sure you do mention it if you get a tick bite. Get tested immediately and then tested 6 months later. Toxins cause neuropathy. Some of the most common toxins that we get experience with are alcohol, nicotine, chemotherapy, radiation, Agent Orange, red and yellow lead paint, some drugs or medications like excessive B6, and in some cases statins. Other toxins may be found in the workplace or even in the home, like insecticides, herbicides, and some cleaning products with which special care must be taken. There are over 150 causes for neuropathy, with diabetes being the most common cause, and then it's followed by hereditary neuropathies. Many people notice that their parents and or siblings have neuropathy too, and not realize that it may have been passed down through the generations. My neuropathy is hereditary, and it was an early onset type of neuropathy. I do not know how far back it started. I do know that I'm descended from John and Priscilla Alden of the Plymouth colony. I'd not thought it went back more than a few generations that I knew about. But I read about Abigail Adams, and was especially interested because she's in the same family tree. When her husband John was finishing his time as president, she chose not to go to some of the festivities as her feet were bothering her too much. It brings tears to my eyes to think of the fashion requirements of earlier days, and even some today, and the pain these would cause someone with neuropathy. I won't climb stairs without a handrail, for example, as I know I'd need to come down the stairs, which could lead to a terrible fall. The tightness of hose over my toes gives an indescribable pain, and so I've had to not do that. And of course heels are out, so you have all kinds of interesting things when you have neuropathy that you deal with, even if you don't see it. A lot of people, you don't have any idea they have neuropathy because they don't show it. Tumors pushing against the nerve, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation due to infection, and many other known and not yet known situations cause neuropathy. So if you might not have any idea that you or somebody you know has neuropathy, but there are a lot of people that do. So it's good to know the symptoms. So if you're with someone, work or whatever, and they say, I got this funny feeling in my toes, it's starting to go into my feet, can't figure out, it's just something happened, that is important to encourage them to talk to their doctor about it. And you got from Carol Koski the concept of if it's sudden onset, you're at work and someone says, I just can't even walk. I've had this funny feeling when I got up, can't even walk now. And you want to get them to the ER immediately, because by the evening they can be in a respirator, because the Guillain-Barré syndrome comes on suddenly and can be deadly. So it's one thing to be aware that there are different kinds of neuropathies, and some are sudden onset, and some are ones that come on gradually. So you are aware of that to help other people. Well, there are so many different things that cause neuropathy, and that we tend to have people think about, and we pay attention to that, and we don't pay attention to the side effects of that disease as much. And you've heard me talk about a lot of things that cause neuropathy, like diabetes, and it's that, but also I think doctors are almost afraid of it because they can't tell people anything that will cure it. There's no cure. But also, like the neurologists, there aren't enough neurologists to even start treating people with neuropathy because there are so many of us. If you take all of the neurological diseases together, we outnumber them. If you just total them all together, we outnumber that total. And there are only so many neurologists. I know that we did a little study to find out how many we had in the areas, and it's almost impossible for them to have treated everybody, and not every even region of the small hospitals don't necessarily have neurologists nearby.
Do you think that there will be more or less neuropathy in the future?
Unless a cure is found, there will be more. There seems to be more diabetics each year, and 70 to 80% of those having diabetes will get neuropathy. So that number will be rising. And as better diagnosis is done, more will be found with neuropathy, especially those contracting Lyme disease, as there are new tests that are more definitive. The estimate of numbers of cases of Lyme disease in the U.S. per year has risen considerably. It was in the tens of thousands. Now it's in the hundreds of thousands. We seem to be increasing our consumption of alcoholic beverages and laughing more about it. It is a major cause of neuropathy, so more will be experiencing neuropathy because of its heavy use. In some people, it doesn't take long to accomplish this, so it's something to consider. One thing I'm asked is how people can help us help people with neuropathy. We are the Pacific chapter of the Neuropathy Association, which is California, Nevada, and Oregon, but we have the only 800 number listed for neuropathy. It's 877-622-6298. I answer this, and I talk to people across the country and even am contacted internationally. Recently, I was able to connect an attorney in Turkey who has neuropathy with an outstanding neurologist in Germany, for example. In the past few weeks, I've been contacted by another lady. I've had several in Pennsylvania. We helped start a neuropathy support group in North Carolina. A lady from other parts of North Carolina has called recently. Even people from New York City have called, and I've referred them to a neurologist that specializes in neuropathy who practices there. We have members in a variety of states as well, so each person who calls is sent a packet of information. So we do this to help people in various parts of the country, so we're not just on the West Coast. The Neuropathy Association nationally isn't that quite as involved with the person-to-person kinds of things that we are. The first thing we ask that could be done to help is that you know what neuropathy is and tell other people what you've learned.
Well, we are supporting you, Bev, and thank you again for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show and also the guests as well, so thank you again.
And it's been a pleasure to work with you, Lucy.
You've been listening to APMG Radio with my special guest, Bev Anderson. This show and many others can be found at allpromediagroup.com. Thank you all for joining us today. You've been listening to APMG Radio.
All Pro Media Group Radio showcases professionals on a daily basis. Be inspired and listen to experts from around the globe share their accomplishments with you. APMG Radio, success at its finest.